the recording. Thank you all for attending the November session for the CARC data facing track. I'm going to give a little introduction to the data facing track and CARC in general, and then we're going to introduce our speakers for today. So you are here in the data facing track. CARC, the Campus Research Computing Consortium, is made up of multiple facets. I guess I would say it's an organization, that's basically supporting anyone in the research computing professions. And we've basically made up of the People Network, which the data facing track is part of, also includes the researcher facing, systems facing, emerging centers, and the new one, strategy and policy facing. And these are have monthly calls, talk about relevant topics, and are basically a ongoing like conference, year-long conference. CARC is also made up of working groups, interest groups, and then operational groups. So if you have interest in other areas of research computing, you can join one of these groups and participate and contribute. I mentioned it's already a year-long facing conference. These are more what the focuses of the different tracks are. Data facing, the one that you're in now, focuses mostly on data management and like sharing all the things around the research data. Our population is not only just research computing folks, but a lot of librarians, other information professionals. Researcher facing is from the compute side, how to do the consultations, outreach, and engagement with researchers. Emerging centers focusing on the developing research computing. At my own institution, we basically got research computing on 5 years ago. This was a great place for us to learn about how to start our center. Systems facing, focusing a lot on the actual technology that we're supporting. And then strategy and policy facing is looking at how do we adapt to the new policies and how do we basically approach research computing from a much more theoretical and how to think about, the bigger picture for research computing. If you want to join, you can visit the website, great place to get started, but also you can come to the events, you can join the People Network, then you'll get all the information about the calls, or you can actually join one of the working groups and participate in those activities. This is our data facing track. I'm Amy Koschhofer, and Deb is also here. We are the co-coordinators. Our track has been in a bit of flux. We've had members stepping on of the steering committee, stepping off. So if you're interested in joining, please let us know. But currently we have Zoe Bratterman, Cameron Cook, Moira Downey, and Lauren Michelle, who are on the steering committee. Venice has just stepped down because she is moving on to a different position. Okay, and this is today's talk. We are here to talk about the research data framework, and we are very grateful to be joined by Bob and Andrea from NIST. So I'm going to turn it over to them to talk about the framework and how we can make good use of it in our day-to-day work. Okay, actually, oops, let me get out of this.
No, we can talk about sun lotion if you'd like.
That was such a great topic and a great title. So, but I'm going to hand it over to you guys. Thank you very much.
Well, I wasn't sure I'd be here. So, Andrea, do you want to kick things off, or do you want me to give sort of the general background?
Can you give the general background?
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll give the general background. So already about 5 years ago, we decided at NIST that so much was happening around research data management, and so many organizations were not well prepared to deal with the changing environment, the changing policies around research data sharing. And my supervisor at the time, Eric Lynn, and I sat down and said, what can we do about this to help the community? And NIST is kind of in the business of doing frameworks. You probably are all aware of our cybersecurity framework. We also have a privacy framework, and we thought we should develop a framework for research data. We held a kickoff event in December of 2019, where we brought together around 50 to 55 representatives, both national and international, from academia, from industry, from the private sector, from publishers, to confirm, is there a need for a research data framework? And the consensus was yes. So we took that to heart and started to put together a team to work on this. Some funny background noises here, sorry. The whole point of the framework was to develop a document, eventually a website, and we're currently working on a knowledge graph, dynamic knowledge graph, that is oriented around the life cycle stages in research data management. And in the first initiating meeting, we agreed on what that life cycle is. And then we took it upon ourselves to define the topics and subtopics that pertain to each of those life cycle stages in research data management. We went through a whole series of interactions with the community to refine and improve, extend these topics and subtopics. The result was version 1 of the Research Data Framework, the RDAF. And we had some early adopters of that, most notably the Government of Canada, who was looking across their research data management infrastructure. And they used RDAF version 1 to do sort of a self-assessment. Where did they have capacity? Where did they have capacity in development? Where were they lacking capacity? We learned from them that there were certain ambiguities in the framework and certain areas where more information was needed. So we went back to work on it and developed a version 1.5 that much improved the content of the framework. And we then vetted 1.5 with a number of stakeholder breakout groups representing people who have different roles and responsibilities in research data management. So talking about research librarians, about scholarly publishers, about funders, private and public, people in IT support, in academia, people in executive positions in universities, anybody that touched something related to policy, process, data acquisition, researchers in the lab, researchers using computers to compute models and simulations. And with those inputs, we developed a set of profiles which define the typical responsibilities of people in these various roles within an organization. We also determined that a number of aspects of research data management, such as metadata, touch in all of the various areas in the research data lifecycle, and those became a set of overarching themes. We also provided definitions for all of the topics and subtopics, and we generated a list of references. There are more than 1,000 that are pertinent and linked to the topics and subtopics in the framework. And finally, we collected a list of organizations that are working in the research data management arena so that people would have some idea of organizations they could reach out to for guidance, assistance, and so forth in developing policy, process, procedure, and practice within their organizations. This was all amalgamated into version 2.0 of the RDAF, which was released in early of this year, February, March of this year. And our focus has since turned to helping other organizations to use the framework in ways that help them to have some introspection about what's going on in their organization, bring about conversations with all of the players within your organization who touch on research data management, and help those conversations bring about better practices, economic improvements and cost improvements and how you manage data, and basically do a better job of data management, data dissemination, and sharing with the overall purpose of improving science productivity, and the credibility of science. So that's what the framework is all about. What did I miss, Andrea? I'm sure I missed some important points.
None that I can think of right now, but so RDOF is it's a giant document. If you click on the first link I put in the chat, that takes you to our PDF version. Actually, it's an HTML version now of the document. It's massive. We understand that trying to get through a framework using a PDF or even HTML is really difficult. It's not the most intuitive way to use it. So we developed a web app that allows you to enter the framework at any node, so within any life cycle stage or subtopic or even an overarching theme, and then move up or down or across nodes that way, instead of trying to flip through a PDF or a paper copy of it. So those are the two access points we have to the actual framework. We have a website as well. Thank you, Maura, for putting those in again. We have a website that gives you a little bit more background on what we've done recently and all that sort of stuff. Has some announcements and the like on it. One thing we don't have up there yet, because we're still working with organizations to figure it out, is, well, how do you implement RDAF? That's the question we get every time I talk about this. So, well, how do you implement it? Well, however you want. That's the lame answer. It's kind of a cop out, but it's also true. We have worked with both the government of Canada. We have worked with the SUNY State University of New York, the SUNY system, as they're trying to get their arms wrapped around the state of research data within their organizations. So I'll talk a little bit more about SUNY in a minute. I want to let everyone know that you can just pop in and ask questions, either put them in the chat or just take yourself off mute. I don't mind being interrupted. And then we'll also talk about some of activities that we do at workshops to help people understand how they might implement RDAF within their organization. And then we'll have lots of time for questions. I actually have a question for all of you guys first. If you can raise your hand. Actually, no, raising hand doesn't work. It's a reaction that I need that'll pop up. You can give any reaction. The top three that I see are balloons, a rocket, and thumbs up. Those will shoot up on the screen and I can see. If you have worked with RDAF before, or flipped through it, anything like that, heard of it, listened to one of these spiels before. If I get none, then I'm going to go a little bit deeper. So RDAF is made up of what we call the foundation. And so that is the 6 life cycle stages. So envision, plan, collect, process and analyze, and share, use, reuse, share, use, and reuse, and then preserve or discard. Those are the 6 different life cycle stages. Within each of those life cycle stages, we have a set of topics and subtopics related to it. I'm going to bring up the website so we can see it a little bit better, or the web app. So once we see this, we'll give it a little bit better idea of it. So we've got the 6 life cycle stages here. You can enter those on the left-hand app as well. So let's actually go through and let's look at process and analyze. That's something folks with compute responsibilities often deal with. So it takes a little bit of time to load. And here we've got the topics, a definition for each topic, and then these Links below are to informative references. So that's our whole reference list. You can also access in the left-hand navigation as well. Each subtopic also has a definition and one or more references. So for compute, let's say we're looking at analysis methods and we want to know more about descriptive analysis methods. We'll have just the definition on its own node page, and then we have a list of informative references for it. But if I want to look at this from the perspective of a given role, we can also go into it and look at it from a profile. These generic profiles that we came up with, we have 10 of them, I believe. They take the position that I am a curator or I'm a librarian, and these are the things that the RDAF team learned from a group of stakeholders in that role are important to them from the RDAF. So let's see, let's be a data and IT leader today. And so basically this is RDAF for data and IT leaders. It's focused on the things that they find most important, or our group of stakeholders in these roles found most important from each of the life cycle stages in RDAF. So in Envision, it's things having to do with data governance. There's lots of them. Data culture and reward structures. If we scroll farther down into the plan phase, there's important topics and subtopics under data architecture. So they're a way to look at RDAF and narrow it down to the things that are going to be important to your role. So you can do that for any of these 14. You can just sort of start there, see if those resonate with you, or you can go to our website, and down here we have an appendix, which is an Excel file that has all those generic or sample profiles plus a blank one. So this is something that we actually have done in several workshops, is we sit down with a group of people and say, okay, what is your role? And let's think about what RDAF looks like for your role. And you can do it starting with a generic profile or a sample profile, or if you're more familiar and you've taken a lot of time reading through it, the RDAF framework itself, you could just start with the blank one and sit down and check those topics and subtopics that resonate with you, because you either are influenced by the decisions made around these topics or you have influence over decisions and the like. So that's one way that people have started implementing RDAF that we've talked to. Another way is even simpler than having a task or an activity at hand, which is now people have said, now I have something to take to my boss to say, we've been asking a bunch of questions about what research data looks like here at our organization. Here's a way to structure those conversations. Can we sit down with RDAF and figure out how we would want to use it? So that's a second way people have used it. And I would say that the third way that we know of is a benchmarking exercise. And those can look like a benchmark scorecard. That's what the government of Canada did. They took and gave themselves, I think it was the red, yellow, green. And then you could do it in a way like SUNY has done it. SUNY, and I'm just going to open this up, the SUNY RDAF Explorer. I'll go into this a little more in just a second, but they started with a regular benchmarking exercise and realized that, well, one, it was all over the place, and they really wanted to focus on the topics and subtopics that were going to be of most importance to their executive level folks across the organization. And there's a lot of them because SUNY has something like 60 campuses, plus the whole overarching SUNY organization. And those 60 campuses are everything from community colleges through R1 and medical schools. So the way that they handle research data and produce research data is going to be vastly different across all of these campuses. So they needed a way to look at RDAF, not only from the perspective of an executive level person, but also they realized as they're going through the process, RDAF isn't necessarily actionable. And by that, we mean if you look at our topics or subtopics, they don't necessarily say, it's not a question, it's a statement. Fair data guidelines are supported. Well, we don't have a way to say, how. We don't necessarily say what are examples of how fair data principles are being implemented or supported. So what they did is they took our topics and subtopics and they turned them into actionable outcomes and activities. The way we can see this is they've created this graph model where you can go in and click on Envision, say, and here are the different topics from RDAF. And then these outcomes and considerations and activities are things that SUNY developed for themselves. So a consideration for data government's legal and regulatory compliance. Well, we have ethics, we have safety and security. These are all things you have to consider. Whereas the outcomes for this, and this is where the benchmarking comes in, they have some of the RDAF subtopics, and then on some of these, they say that they came up with them themselves. So a research is conducted ethically. Well, have we started with that? Are we in progress? Have we achieved it? And I believe you can get a report of all of your things out of this prototype. If not, then I know that's coming. So that is the way that they have set up benchmarking for their organization or organizations. All right. So those are a couple of the ways that we've heard that folks would like to use RDAF or implement RDAF or have begun implementing RDAF. I would like to know if anyone else has questions. I'm gonna stop sharing actually for a minute so I can see.
Andrea, there is a question in the chat from, I think it's Scott, is that right?
So Scott, it actually is the Digital Research Alliance of Canada. That was the group that did it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So my question would be to all of you sitting in the room, what have you done at your organization to try and get your arms around research data and how you are handling it or governing it so far? Do you feel like you're on the path to getting your arms around it? Are you looking for some guidance on how to do that? Is that something that you guys haven't even considered and it's the Wild West and you guys are comfortable with that? Yeah, the NIST 800 series, Allison put in that they follow NIST 800 171. Those are the FIPS guidance, I believe. So that's about security and privacy at various organizations. So that's, yeah, in this case, 171 is protecting CUI. That's going to be about privacy. Lots of different standards NIST has put out. And so the difference between the standards and RDAF is we are not a standard. We are what we would hope to be a collection of resources pointing at best practices from around the world. So it's not necessarily that NIST has said that this is a great idea. It's that NIST helped convene the community and the community said, here's all the things that we have done. Here's all the things we think we should be doing. And this is the result is the research data framework.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that even though, the S in NIST is standards, it's only in IT security issues that NIST actually sets standards for federal government agencies. In all other areas where standards are involved, NIST collaborates with different research communities to develop those standards. We participate in the process, but we don't tell people what to do. We are not a regulatory agency. And the frameworks are really, again, not NIST telling people what to do. The RDAF and all the other frameworks are NIST's aggregation of information that we heard from the community. And we organized it in a way that we hope is useful for others in the community to use, and either to assess or improve or revise the ways that they do research data management.
So how can you learn more about this? You can learn more, go through our website, take some time to really peruse the framework, and then come at us with questions. You can reach us at rdaf@nist.gov.
And Andrea recently did a tutorial session at the EDUCAUSE annual meeting. We've also done tutorial sessions for RDAP, which is the research, help me out.
Research Data
Research
Access and
data.
Preservation. So that's a group mostly of librarians.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're open to doing workshops. And I think the best way to sort of figure out what you need that would work for NIST and for your organization would be to just start a conversation with us. You know, Allison says,
So
where
you're,
can I get training? And that's like, oh, we could just set up a training thing, not just a workshop, but a
do you
whole
have
training on
like
it.
office hours and consultations that you do for people that are looking for assistance? Because at our institution, we've just embarked on our formalized data governance processes. And though research data will be a small part of that, it's going to come in later years. And I'm thinking that would it be better to start getting the people, like, put this on their radar so that like in a couple years they can come back to you and, hopefully, the SUNY resource is still there and very active and could use that, but also could maybe have consultations with you, in
Yeah,
like an office hours kind of idea or something like that.
yeah, we've done office hours and consultations before. Happy to still do those. But yeah, that conversation. We started out with just consultations with SUNY, and that ended up being a little bit deeper than that. We have done. They've helped us with workshops. We have done some panel presentations with them, and we're working on a paper to describe the work that they've done and that we've done together.
There's another question in the chat.
Hmm.
About what is the scope of research data? Is this for any researcher leveraging data sets? This could be overwhelming for productive researchers.
Yeah, it covers the whole gamut, but it also points out, areas where decisions can be made. How much data do you keep? What criteria do you use to make those decisions? For example, at NIST, we have a lot of people who are developing new instrumentation, and they may be just trying to see whether this instrument is working in this particular mode. So there's no particular research value to that data. So we don't make any requirement on preservation of data like that. But data that is been processed and analyzed and is being used to support a research finding that is being published, that's the sort of research data that we think needs the attention paid to it to make sure that it's preserved and made accessible and shareable according to, the policies that have now come out from the OSTP on data sharing and publications. So the RDAF can help you figure out where you need to preserve data, where you need to share data, but where you don't. And it can also help you determine, how long to keep data, what sort of decisions need to be made about preservation in the long term. So yes, it can be overwhelming for productive researchers, but also hopefully it will help people manage, the decision-making process about what to keep and what to share and how to share it effectively. Yeah, thank you, Allison, for that
Awesome.
comment. Yeah.
I'll say to Bob, to your comment about helping researchers to make decisions when I'm situated in the libraries, and when we talk to researchers about research data management, I think the idea is to help productive researchers become even more productive because they're more organized and their data is sort of comprehensible to them at a high level. And so I think that this is a really useful tool to do that in a granular way.
I like to phrase it, it's making research data transportable in space and time. Even for the researcher themselves, right? They take data today. If they don't properly annotate it, or if it's not born fair with sufficient metadata, they won't know what they did 6 months from now. And when I first came to NIST 10 years ago, the data management in many cases was a drawer full of thumb drives or stacks of hard drives up on a shelf. So this is not data management. This is,
I've maybe seen a filing cabinet full of hard drives in the
right,
last 12
right,
months. So
right. So where's that data I took last September? Oh, geez. And how did I set up the instrument in that measurement? I don't know anymore. So, we're trying to help people take data in ways that make it easy for them to use and reuse, but also to share so that others can use and reuse it in different contexts and potentially make discoveries that go beyond the scope of the original research effort.
Yeah, Scott, that's a really good point also, that it's helping to assist those PIs who
Yeah.
write DMPs and then they forget about them. But a DMP has always been intended to be a living document that you go back to, and yeah, having a better understanding of not just your research data world, but the research data world within your organization will help with making those DMPs more effective documents.
I would love to quote you, Scott, on that, living your DMP. That's a great phrase that I hadn't heard before.
Rather than it simply ending up being a box ticked as part of a grant submission, it assists them in the life of the, data in their, say, 5-year program with that data, and then, make it reusable in some
Yeah.
fashion if that's allowed, or even if it needs to be controlled behind, uh, emailing the PI for access because of the content of the data. You know, all of that could be part of living that data management plan.
Yeah. So let me tell you why I'm here in Bonn, Germany, because it's really germane to this discussion. The German government, the DFG, which is the German version of the National Science Foundation, is funding a program called the NFDI, which is the National Research Data Infrastructure. And over 10 years, they're investing nearly €1 billion and supporting consortia in different research areas to develop research data management infrastructure. And several of their projects came up for funding renewal. And so I was asked to be on the review panel. These organizations are thinking deeply about metadata standards, open data formats, um, compute infrastructure, um, data flow, and all things necessary to make sure that any data acquired in a particular research discipline is useful, again, across space and time, and goes to appropriate repositories, is totally fair at birth. And I think it's quite amazing that the German government felt that this kind of investment was really necessary to do this well. So it's really pretty remarkable. I'm privileged to be here to help them make decisions about the merits of these projects and how they can be as effective as possible. I would love to see this sort of investment being made on the U.S. side. It may happen with the NAIR, the national AI research resource, but and I wish the NAIR had a bit more general remit than just supporting AI. But currently it is an unfunded program as well. I saw a hand go up and then go down, so maybe I answered the question already.
So I wonder if you, oh, Deb, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. I was wondering, so I kind of work right, I guess I'd call it a bridge between like the computing infrastructure and the data management services.
Mhm.
So it seems like a helpful next step would be to kind of translate the RDAF into some technology ideas.
Mhm. Yeah, in fact, we have been really interested in finding some partners. We've actually got some conversations going on with the private sector about using the RDAF to build some tools that would help people interactively develop solutions using the RDAF as a resource. Using it in conjunction with LLMs, for example, to ask questions of effective ways to deploy research data management infrastructure, linking it to the policy issues, coming from OSTP. So those things have not yet materialized, but we are very open to those kinds of collaborations and would love to see, in some sense, as happened with the cybersecurity framework, the private sector come in and build some value-added tools on top that would address issues just like this.
Well, I will say if you kind of put that call out on the CARC email list, you will get a lot of people who are interested.
Okay,
This
all
is
right.
this is what keeps a lot of people up at night.
It kept us up a lot at night for the past 5 years as well.
Yeah.
So that kind of hits at one angle of what I was about to ask is what's next for the RDAF? You talked about releasing the version 2.0 recently. Are there plans for further iterations? What does that look like?
Short term, no. Short term, basically, Andrea and I are the RDAF. So we're not going to embark on version 3 or anything like that in the near term. I think in the next, year or so, our emphasis is on doing events like this, engaging with potential users of the RDAF, helping them figure out how to get started. Because it is, as Andrea said, it's a big, complicated document, and it could be a little bit overwhelming if you just say, well, how do I get going? So our emphasis is really on this community engagement, and we will do what we can between the two of us and maybe a few others that we can bring in to help organizations. But the document and its manifestations are basically static for now. If we, over the next year or two, find that the landscape has changed dramatically, or collecting feedback from people who are using it and say, this confused me, we could do our best to make some, perhaps a minor revision of version 2.1 or something like that. But I don't imagine right now, given our resources, that we'll be doing another major release anytime soon. So in one sense, it's stable. It's not going to change under your feet, at least not for a while. I'm going to have to sign off, but Andrea, I think, has some more time to answer more questions. But I really am pleased to engage with you all, and please reach out to us at rdaf@nist.gov or to Andrea and me personally, and we will do our best to help you out. But and thank you so much, Cameron, for arranging this and inviting us to meet with you all. And I wish you all a pleasant day. I'm going to go try to find some dinner before the restaurant closes downstairs. That's my constraint right now.
Thank you,
Thanks so much
Bob.
for joining. Yeah.
Okay, bye for now.
Oh, great. Cameron was able to come on. So I guess any last questions that you already have? Otherwise, I would love to know a little bit more about where you guys all sit within your organizations. You don't have to tell me I'm the Linux administrator for a small university or something along those lines. Just I'm trying to get a good idea of the sorts of people who are coming to our events and are interested in RDAF generally. You can just put it in the chat or speak out. I guess it would be very quiet if we all just put it in the chat. I didn't introduce myself with my background. I'm actually a data librarian here at NIST. I was trained as an archivist and came in as a metadata librarian. And when the 2013 memos came out that said you got to make your data public, I started working with the first groups at NIST who were working on these policy issues because a lot of the issues identified, especially early on with research data management, were really similar to archival challenges. But I've been doing that for more than 10 years at this point. So I consider myself fully a librarian now. Research facilitation. All right. I think that's the first time I've heard that role, research facilitator. Moira, would you mind describing that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think Deb actually probably is better positioned to describe it than me. I think she's been doing it for longer. The NC State has a kind of cross-functional team that's composed of folks in the libraries and in OIT, the Office of Information Technology, and we do what we are calling research facilitation. But it's basically my position is basically kind of a frontline, take questions from researchers, bring the right people in to sort of help answer their questions. And then I have a background in data management and curation. Deb, you want to talk about how that works for you?
Yep. So at Arizona State, the research IT is actually in the Office of Research, which is a little interesting. And then we have a close collaboration with the library. But yeah, I'm also one of those frontline people that talks to the researchers and just gets their requirements and then takes that back to all the different teams. I've heard a solutions architect is a title for this in industry.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have the other two members of our team who do this kind of work are the solutions integrations consultant solutions. It's same sort of architect engineer sort of title.
Okay. Thank you. You guys see a pressure coming, like where's the pressure coming from you guys? From researchers because they want to be doing the right thing, or is it coming from funders, all of the above?
It's mainly because of all the changes from the cloud computing or storage providers like Google Drive, Dropbox Box. Trying to figure out how to handle all that data that was up there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a major driver for us as well. I mean, I think there are some concerns, especially as the sort of data management plan requirements start to come online, right, from the federal agencies about data management planning from that front. But I think that the most acute concern right now is we were a Google campus and we had free unlimited storage, and now we no longer do. And what do I do with these terabytes that I've accumulated over the last 10 years, you know?
Yeah, especially when they can't just like ask for CapEx funding. So, and also like part of the concern there is that they used those cloud storage because one, they were quote unquote free, and two, they were easy to use. And it's just hard to replicate that with like just on-premise type of hardware.
Mhm. Well, I don't want to drag this out for everyone, but again, you can reach us at rdaf@nist.gov. And we are happy to see what we can do to help you understand what's happening within RDAF, how you might use it within your own organization. Yeah, I'm really pleased that we were invited here today. It was a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Thank you for taking the time.
All right. Well, have a good afternoon, everyone, and I'll maybe meet you guys again in the future.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
I think just to let data track folks know, there's no call in December. So instead, you should all be attending the end of year party. And I can't remember the date, but it'll be in the emails.
We'll follow up with email.
Yep.
Bye all.
See you.